the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Questions from the Italian Football Podcast Patrons, where you, our patrons, decide what the show is about by simply sending in your questions via email, DM on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but preferably via DM on Patreon. I'm joined, as always, by Carlo Garganese, so let's start with the first question, which has been sent in from Sanat, who says... Hi, and Carlo. My question this week is around fixture congestion and whether having a tight league battle is helpful or a disadvantage for teams battling it out in Europe. Teams in Spain and Italy all this season have a very close league battle, while Bundesliga and Premier League are pretty much done and dusted. In years past, we'd often find a team flying high in the league and perhaps dropping their eye off the ball a bit and not being able to click into gear right away for a big European night and getting knocked out. On the other hand, while it's not ideal to play full near-strength squads every week, perhaps it helps focus the squad as they have no risk of dropping in intensity. What are your thoughts? Thanks. I think that's a really good point about the intensity and focus, but fatigue is also an issue, especially in a season that is 11 months long for Inter and Real Madrid and Barcelona and all the teams that are in 5 competitions, plus including this ridiculous FIFA Club World Cup at the end of the season. So I think it's a two-edged sword. I'd rather be Bayern Munich in this situation and Liverpool in the sense that the league's wrapped up. You can focus more on the Champions League ties. Well, Liverpool could until they got knocked out. But Bayern Munich, for sure, they can focus more on that Inter game and work towards it and not really losing a game in the Bundesliga won't matter because they've already got that wrapped up. Whilst Barca, Real, Atletico Madrid, or they're knocked out now, but Real and Barca, they're in a race for Copa del Rey. They're in a race for La Liga. They're in a race for Champions League. So I think, of course, injuries are an issue. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think you need a bit more balance. I mean, I think ideally, I guess, from this perspective, is if you're Inter and you have like a 3 to 6 point lead over the second spot, that's a good place to be because you're not too relaxed, but you're also not, you're not being.
I agree completely with your last point. I would say maybe slightly more points ahead than that. I mean, like 3 is still, you still have to win. But I would say, if you're about 5, 6 points, that's probably perfect. That way you can still rotate and you keep up your focus. I think it can go both ways. If you've won the league already by March, you can lose you definitely can lose your focus and intensity and your rhythm.
As we saw in the last season against Atletico Madrid, they did lose their focus and rhythm in March because the league was already wrapped up in February. So there is a point to that. Absolutely.
Although having said that, though, I think that now in modern football, it's more important to be fit and not be tired, and than it is to have kind of that rhythm. I would say in the past that was more important, but now football is so overwhelmingly now about fitness and intensity and physical qualities, especially later on in the season, that I think having a long rest now will actually helps a lot, probably a lot more than it would have done in the past, I think. So especially with there being extra games now as well. So I actually think it's probably better to have more of a rest than to have to keep up your focus, if I had to choose between the two.
Yeah, that's fair. Next question, Darren Murphy asks, a lot of my love for Italian football comes from the 2000s and onwards, and also I'm a big fan of championship managers, still play the 01-02 to this day. In that game, Atalanta had a squad of class players, Luciano Zauri, Damiano Zenoni, Fausto Rossini, Gianni Comandini, Cristiano Doni, to name a few. I've researched their careers and none really went on to do anything. Were they hyped up at the time? And if so, why did they never rise to anything? Cheers in advance and keep up the class pods. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, these were players. I mean, Doni played for the national team. Comandini had that horrible game that Inter fans remember with sheer horror. But other than that, they weren't able to really... I mean, played for Milan, Comandini, but they weren't really able to... I think Zenoni, didn't he play for Juve as well?
Cristiano Zenoni.
There
was 2 of them, yeah. Cristiano joined Juve the summer that they bought the 3 players with the Zidane money, Thuram, Nedved, and Buffon, because there was a photo of him of them unveiling all the four players, and Zanoni was there with the three of them.
Luciano Zauri, didn't he play for Lazio?
Lazio,
they were really strong as well. So they did kind of go to bigger clubs, but they were unable to kind of impose themselves. Except for Don, he's probably the one with the most who had the. I mean, he played for the national team.
Yeah. No, a lot of those, and there was the goalkeeper as well. Do you remember Pellizzoli as well? And he went to Roma. They were quite a highly rated bunch of players. I mean, Atalanta's youth systems for a long time
always been good,
been amazing. But I do think, they were probably overhyped and overrated a little bit. Championship Manager did that with Atalanta for a while. Champ Manager kind of had a few clubs that Everton was another one because the original founders and creators of Championship Manager were Everton fans, Collier brothers. So they used to overrate all the Everton players. All the Everton players.
I love that. I love that. Everything is realistic except for my favorite club that is just amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, but they did overrate. I remember that because that was a great game, 01-02. But it was too easy though. It was too easy. The best Championship Manager game I will go to my grave with this. Championship Manager 97-98. The best computer game of all time. Period. Any game, any video game, the best ever. If I get time, I still play it now. I don't get much time anymore, but I still would play it now, almost pushing on 30 years now. That's how good that game is.
Yeah, it's agreed, 100%.
Incredible.
And it's also, what's so cool about that game is that when you play it, all of these players that now are managers or sporting directors, and you get reminded of them, of oh shit, he was there.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Heine Danielsson says, Ciao ragazzi, thank you for always keeping me entertained. Keep it up. I believe we can all remember the good days when Serie A and Italian football were the best in the world. Or I also think we can agree that today there are multiple issues in Italian football in general. Lack of youth development, old stadiums simply just falling behind compared to the other big leagues, and many more problems. If you were put in charge and had the power to bring Serie A back to where they were, where would you start and how would you go about it? I know it's a big question and not something that can be done overnight, but please share your thoughts and ideas. And a similar question from Marty Glenn. He says, not going to contribute too much to the Juventus weekly whinge fest, but I've got to bring up a statistic to support Carlo's claim that set pieces are key to a successful team. According to WhoScored.com, the only team with fewer goals contributions from set pieces than Juve is Monza. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, I decided to drive into a new delusional interest. I've discovered that my hometown team, Borgosesia Calcio, that plays in the Serie D Eccellenza Piemonte, is worth only $81,000, and I'm now working on convincing my wife that this is our retirement plan. Oh, this is brilliant. We'll retire 3-4 decades from now, buy the team, and do an Italian Wrexham and bring the team into relevance. Perhaps a documentary series might be in order. My aspirations and goals are clearly well reasonable and grounded in reality. Of course, Marty, of course, absolutely. But it got me thinking about what kind of owner president I would like to be and what other owners I would like to emulate. I think 80% of Percassi, because that's what he's done with provincial side from Bergamo, is nothing short of incredible, and the other 20% would be Massimo Ferrero, just to keep things wild and unpredictable. So my question is, if you were to build your perfect Serie A owner president, how would you do it?
Oh God.
First of all, your wife she's an amazing sport for not just giving you the side eye and walking out of the room when you suggested this.
Yeah, this is not something you want to do in your retirement.
Yes, let's go into Italian football, hun. That's retirement in our old age for less stress. Oh my days. Oh my God!
Yeah, I'd probably advise against that.
I'd advise against that.
Just play Championship Manager. Take them over. In Championship Manager.
Yeah. Do you know what? Buy a villa in your where you're from and play Championship Manager and leave your wife alone. don't drag her into this. Oh my days! But yeah, I mean, basically, look, I think we've had this question many times. I think what Matt Rizzetta, our good friend, and Mark Consuelos have done with Campobasso is how I go about it. It's built on competence. It's built on patience. It's built on connecting with the community. It's built long term. It's built on creating a sense of connection with the fans all over the world, people from Campobasso who have left the area, building that kind of thing in terms of identity, and also, having a good cooperation and relationship with the city, with a council, to understand that, this is good for everyone. They've got a new, they had a pretty much a refurbished new stadium when they took over, that they could play in. and having patience from that side of things, and then obviously also modern marketing side as well. Understanding that it's the 21st century, but yeah, definitely the Atalanta and Empoli model in terms of youth, but also, it's not just youth. It's also the fact that when you build around players that have a connection to the country, to the community, it becomes personal in a different way. Now, that can be good and bad, but one of the positive things of that is, of course, that there's not going to be people don't need time to adapt to the team or the area or life around in that country. You know what I mean? That's why Inter, Marotta said, basically, talks about how we build around a core of Italians and then we spice with foreigners. I think that's the safest way to build guaranteed success, in the sense that, because they are Italians, and for an Italian to play for one of the big teams there's a social like prestige in that, and it's a rite of passage. There's an honor about that, and they know how life works and everything around that. You don't need to explain. The foreign players might have problem understanding and adapting to. So I think that's really important. And also, if you lack youth development, it's good, because it's if it compared to how much it costs to bring in an external player, then that's a far more sustainable way of doing it, as Atalanta have shown. I mean, that's what I do.
I think you've covered most of the issues there. Like the question says, this would require 10-part documentary just to rub the surface of what needs to be done to Italian football as a whole. But yeah, I think you've covered most of the things, and also just you've got to think of we've got to find ways of making more money financially, and that is based on making the league marketable. In many different ways, but all these things fit into that. You have new stadiums that look great, that are full, that are with proper production and cameras and color and that makes it more attractive to the viewer. But so many things, even filling up the stadiums, making sure that people can buy tickets more than a week and a half before the games, and and I mean, I could go on and on, but just basically making it more marketable. Social media, how the league is sold to people, and all that. Then that that the TV rights deals go up, and negotiating these TV rights. I mean, there's so many things that we're stuck in the past with. Could go on and on, but I think you've covered most of the things there.
No, yeah, that, and of course a really good sporting director as well, a Corvino, a Sartori, Pierpaolo Marino, Sean Soliano, someone like that.
Yeah.
That's key as well. Next question. Maddie Steele Mill says, one of my favorite memories of Napoli's 23-24 Scudetto season was the 5-1 dropping of Juve. A big reason as it stands out is that it was a Friday night game, and being in the US, I knocked off work early on a Friday and watched it at a bar. Electric scenes. Since then, I haven't seen many big games on a Friday at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. Why is that? Is it all just timing with teams in Europe? It seems like such a slot would be really desirable and a potential ratings bonanza. Instead, I see a whole lot of Lecce, Cagliari, and Torino. Give me my Friday Calcio. Well, there's a very simple reason why you don't see big games on Friday, and that's because most of the big teams play in Europe. They play Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday in the Europa League, Champions League, or Conference League, and that's why they can't play on Friday. It's really that simple. And especially now that the European Cups have got more games in them, it's just not going to happen. That's just the short end of it.
Yeah. No, spot on.
Yeah,
there's
not much to add to that. Next question, Rocky says, ciao guys, what's your dream interview from your favorite club and the Italy national team? Out of active players, who would you like to see manage once their playing career is over? Love the pod. My dream interview from my favorite club is Mourinho. I want to interview Mourinho. I have so many questions that he has never been asked about the treble season and his years there at Inter, and the things at Chelsea, the things he said to Wenger, and all that. Like, I have so many questions that I want to ask Mourinho. As for the Italy national team, if it has to be in English, Paolo Maldini. I want to interview Paolo Maldini because he speaks good English too.
I mean, I love history, so I probably would like to, rather than necessarily pick a person in particular, I would like to pick a time that I want to know about, and then pick someone from that time who can tell me about it. So, for example, if we're talking Italian football here, or let's say Italy national team, I guess asking about, let's say, the 1982 World Cup, or someone that played in 1982 that can tell us all the kind of little stories, anecdotes, stuff that you don't know behind the scenes, could tell us about that World Cup. So pick a player from the 1982 World Cup winning team. Who do you reckon would be the best that we could pick from there that's still alive?
I mean, Dino Zoff would be an interesting one.
Yeah,
Marco Tardelli would definitely be interesting.
Yeah, Tardelli would be good because Tardelli's outspoken as well.
Altobelli I've interviewed, but he doesn't speak English, so I was thinking like someone who can do it in English.
Tardelli, I was almost got onto our pod a couple of years ago. I was in talks with I think it was his son actually, but we didn't manage to do it. But yeah, Tardelli would be a good one. Gentile's quite a good one as well. I'd love to know some of his stories, given that he's such a hard man. So someone from '82 probably, from Juventus. From Juventus,
Del Piero, got to be Del Piero.
Well, I've interviewed Del Piero before. Okay. Yeah, I've interviewed Del Piero. I mean, I go to the past because everything that I've lived through, I kind of know everything already. Generally, although having said that, there were some of the people we've had on the pod have told us some amazing stories that we don't know. I mean, like Sven, for example. Like some of the stories that he told us was amazing, wasn't he? Yeah.
I have to say, Jay Bothroyd, when he talks about Gaddafi's son wanting to buy everyone a Mercedes.
Yeah, that was cool, really.
And he took everyone to Monaco and why? I mean, that's one of the funniest interviews. I mean, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Platini would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think also because just all the other stuff as well.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of this.
There's lots of stuff.
There's lots of stuff you can't talk about due to legal stuff.
Yeah, UEFA and FIFA stuff, Juventus, Heysel, France national team, 1982 World Cup, Battiston, Schumacher, 1986 World Cup against the game against Brazil. So much. Yeah, so much. Probably Platini.
And as for who would you like to see manage once their playing career is over out of the active players now?
Oof. Who do I think would do a good job? I've always said that I can see Jorginho being a good manager when he gets older, just by the way that he plays. He's like a director on the pitch, the way that he moves everyone around, directs and instructs people what positions to be in. I think he's someone that understands the game tactically and positionally very well, and is a leader in the dressing room. He has all the qualities, I think, basic qualities that you want from a coach. And so I think Jorginho would be someone that I'll be quite interested to see how he does.
I don't know why. I don't know if he's interested, but I would love. I think Ciro Immobile could be an interesting coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. He strikes me as someone who's good at managing personal relationships. He might not be like tactically a super genius, but I think he could have a decent career. I don't know.
Just not a big club.
Actually, that's exactly why I think he would have a big
like his playing career. Yeah,
but a little bit like Simone Inzaghi, Max Allegri, like Luciano Spalletti. Do you know what I mean? Like these guys, they didn't have the best like careers as players, but as coaches, outstanding. So because of that, I think something
can
like
go
that.
both ways. Yeah.
Next question. Jack Hacken says, "Ahoy, ahoy, Mr. Smithers and Carlo Burns." I've got another question for the pod.
This cannot be real. Oh my god.
I was recently watching some old highlights of Catania Palermo from 2009 in the Serie A. Both of these teams have a large fan base and come from the deep south of Italy, but are no longer in the Serie A. It got me thinking. I want them back in the Serie A, and I want them back now. I also need Pescara and Sampdoria back now. I need to get rid of rubbish teams like Empoli, Como, and Lecce. Excuse me, Lecce? Pipe down. and get back these historic and proper clubs. Not this Venezia hipster nonsense either, or whatever. Coming to the question, which historic clubs would you like to see back in the Serie A or Serie B, other than the one I just mentioned? And could a Jersey Shore like program be made in Bedford, and would the girl from River Island be featured in it? What does this mean? What River Island? What's that mean?
So I told the story on the pod. It was when there was a girl from River Island, fucking hell, Love Island. Yeah, I'm saying it right. There was a girl from Love Island called Marlin.
The Swedish girl,
Swedish,
okay.
half Swedish girl.
Oh,
She was one of the stars of Love Island a few years ago, Love Island UK, and she's quite she's local-ish to Bedford. She come into the cake shop before Christmas and to get some cakes and stuff, and my dad serenaded her, and yeah, she stayed for quite a while.
Of course she did.
She loved it. She loved it. But anyway, Vinny Jones, the famous Vinny Jones, he came over to her, kind of got all kind of excited that she was there, and he comes up and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, are you the girl from River Island?"
Oh God, Vinny!
So good.
Jersey Shore in Bedford. I'm not sure. You got a river, but you don't have it's not a coastal place, is it?
Bedford? No, it certainly is not a coastal place.
Yeah, it's landlocked, isn't it?
We do have a river though. Yeah, the River Ouse. Yeah.
Yeah. As for which teams I want back in the Serie A, look, I've said it a million times. I want Lecce, I want Palermo, I want Catania, I want Bari, I want. What else do I want? I've answered this before, but essentially, I want the Serie M, the Serie Mezzogiorno. Start just Rome and South. That's my Serie A. Just the southern teams. That's what I want. That's my ideal Serie A. The Serie M, the Serie Mezzogiorno.
I think a lot of Italian Northerners would probably support you, actually.
I'm sure they would, but for the various reasons.
Yeah. But regarding the Jersey Shore program, just watch this space. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't want to say any more right now.
Yeah.
Our producer Ned, who when he listens will know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, but back in Serie A, if we have an ideal Serie A, yeah, the big teams are the big teams. Okay, they're the ones, the Milans, the Juves, the Inters, the Napolis, the Romas, Lazio, Fiorentina, Genoa, Sampdoria for sure, because that's a fantastic derby. Definitely need Verona. Udinese, absolutely. Then Lecce, Bari, Palermo, Catania. I'd like. Who else would I like? I'd like to have.
Foggia. Come on, you got to put Foggia in
Foggia,
there.
yeah, I'll give you Foggia.
And Avellino as well. Come on.
No, it's too small. Avellino. No, I'd rather have Salernitana because I fell in love with that fan base, and but yeah, Salernitana for sure. And then what else? How many is that? I would like to, you know what? I'd like to have Campobasso somewhere from a region. I want every region represented to some extent. Do you know what I mean? And of course, Cosenza, Crotone, something like that. Basically, I just want the South. Just give me the South. I can't do this.
This is Nimmer's wet dream, basically.
Yeah, it is. Bring back the Anglo-Italian Cup.
Wet dream, only that it never rains in the...
Exactly. I'd never have to travel above Rome. I'd just go down south. Cagliari, of course, Sardinia. Just go around Mezzogiorno and bring back the Anglo-Italian Cup with with the championship teams.
Yes, I'm definitely up for that. Although our teams would get absolutely slaughtered if that happened now.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not too sure. Right, next question. Missak Ulikian says, does Miretti have a chance to stay with Juve in the summer after his very good loan spell in Genoa, or does he need another loan before staying at Juve? And also, should Juve continue to endure this style of possession play instead of reverting again back to direct counter-attacking football again? The basis of building up from the back is their sort of inconsistency in some matches, but Juve builds well from the back. It's the final third where the operation just shuts down. My point is, seeing that Juve has already got the style they want in mind, should they just first try with the same style coach like a Xavi and De Zerbi before going to a Conte who's a direct coach, or even Vincenzo Italiano, because this flip-flopping of styles is the reason Juve has been poor for the last 6 years. No, I don't think they should change, just to ask that a second part, I don't think they should change identity. I just think they should bring better players and a better coach who can handle it, perhaps. It's just not worked with.
No, they shouldn't flip-flop completely over to the other way, because that's just not how you build a project. You need a vision. You stick with that vision, and if it doesn't work with a certain coach trying to execute that vision, then you go to someone else. You might go slightly more to centre, let's say, but not all the way over to the other side. No way, because then that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah,
kind of like what Milan did, going from Fonseca to Conceicao in the same season, and then maybe back to Allegri now, which is looking kind of being increasingly more possible now.
Alec coming back, really? We're doing this.
Well, that's what it does seem to be looking more and more possible now, doesn't it?
I don't see Allegri coming back.
I mean, I think there's
no chance Allegri comes back as long as Giuntoli is there.
No, Milan.
Oh, Milan. Sorry. Milan. Okay. Oh, I thought you said Juve.
No chance of Juve. Yeah.
But the Vincenzo Italiano.
You must have been wondering what the hell you were here. What
are you talking about? But Vincenzo Italiano, I got to say, if he continues like this, and I really hope he stays at Bologna one more season, and if he continues and he can kind of, if they make the Champions League again, which I think would be a huge, much bigger accomplishment this season than last season, because I think he had better players, Motta, than Vincenzo Italiano does. But above all, the defensive stability, the cohesion. If he can continue down this path and he can combine the Champions League and the Serie A, if he can get them to another Coppa Italia final, that's like 3-4 finals he's been to. Okay, he hasn't won any of them, but the Fiorentina ones are the ones I'm disappointed in. Bologna, I can't ever demand that he were to win anything, given, especially in domestically in Italy. But if he continues like this, another season growing and developing and continuing to deliver, I don't see why he's not good enough to be at a Milan or a Juve. Honestly.
Wow.
Because the football, the development we've seen, the football they're playing is just, it's so impressive. The trajectory is so high.
That is something I don't think anybody could have expected hearing from them at this time last year. So
because you didn't have it in. I mean, I look at what someone does, and I think what Italiano's done this season is truly unbelievable. I think it's so remarkable. I did not see that coming. I
didn't see it coming either. Especially with the transfer market, which is losing six of their key players or whatever.
But not just that; it's just that doing it with the players he's done it, the defensive side of it as well. They look actually really solid defensively. Not outstanding. He's still going to be Italiano, but it's much, much better than it's ever looked under Italiano as a defender, defensively. And his development of young players, we've seen that since Spezia. I mean, he's fantastic with young players. So he does have that in him. But no, I'm so impressed with what he's done with Bologna. So I hope he stays another season. If they make it, they're definitely going to make it to Europe. But if they make it the Champions League and he can combine those three, and playing every 3 days rather, and combining playing in several competitions and going past a league stage of the Champions League and mounting a top 6-7 finish for Bologna in the Serie A, I don't see, and continues this development and trajectory. I don't see why not. I mean, the football they're playing in the final third and as a team is just is so good. You got to give credit where credit is due.
No, fair play. Can't argue with that. Can't.
What'd you make of Miretti?
Miretti, I mean, he wasn't doing well in the first kind of half of the season at all. He's hit form now since Vieira's taken over, in recent weeks especially, and he's doing very, very well. But I don't know. I almost feel like I'd want him to do one more year at another club, maybe move to a slightly bigger club than Genoa next season and see how he does. I don't want to just kind of rush him back to Juventus on the base of maybe half a good season, and then we're back to square one. And it's Genoa. Is he? I would like to see him move to a slightly bigger club, maybe. That's what I think.
I think. I mean, he's not. He's using him in a very specific way, Vieira, and it's worked really well for him. But it's interesting. Nicolussi Caviglia, Rovella, Fagioli, Miretti. Like, I'm not saying all of them are regret.
Moise Kean.
Yeah, Huijsen. I mean, it's starting to look a lot like, lots of mistakes here by Juve.
Yeah.
It's starting, and what's his name? De Winter as well in Genoa, who's being linked, done really well, defender as well. So it's yeah.
I don't know why Italian clubs don't do, not just Juventus, but I think Inter do it a little bit better, but most of the Italian clubs, I don't know why they don't just do what Real Madrid do, where they sell these players, but they put buyback clauses in their deals, and that they can buy them back, and that way, if they
you don't lose control over them,
yeah. I don't know why Italian clubs, especially because if Juventus had done that, I mean, look, they could bring back a Rovella, they could bring back some of these players. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand why they don't do that. I don't know, not that I'm aware of, if there's some kind of Italian law that doesn't.
I know there was a couple of years ago there was a recompra, because of there was an issue with the buyback clauses that forced them to kind of change the regulations around that, because a lot of teams were doing these fictitious plusvalenza thing.
Yeah.
Especially in the early 2000s, it was basically a sport, and that create inflated values, which made the books and the values of the clubs look better, and that was it was a complete mess. So I think they're much more stringent in how they do that.
But like Real Madrid, the way that Real Madrid do it is incredible.
Yeah, it is. But Brahim Diaz and Nico Paz, no one can say that's fictitious value. Or Alvaro Morata when he was at his best.
So many. There was Hakimi. There was Alvaro Morata. There's been so many.
Yeah. But these are quality players. I mean, it's not. Yeah, but yeah,
Jimenez as well. It's I mean,
no, it's.
I don't know why Italian clubs and like Juventus don't do that, and they wouldn't be. They wouldn't go on to regret the mistakes that they made. But I'm just wondering whether there is some kind of law that doesn't allow that to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, not sure. Anthony Pianezza says, "Hi guys, I've been a patron for a couple of years now, but this is my first time writing to the show. Just want to say you guys are immensely talented and a joy to listen to every week. I look forward to every episode. Keep up the great work." Well, thank you, Anthony, and please do make sure that this is not the first and only question you send in. To his question, he says, it's a bit philosophical, my question. Do you think it's better for the long-term health of Serie A to have one or two dominant clubs in the league who win every season, like Barca and Real Madrid in Spain, or have even more field with 5-6 teams having legitimate chances to win the league every season? When Juve were in their decade of dominance, it made the league predictable and feel less important, but they were also highly relevant in Europe. This drove huge fan engagement around the globe. Now the league itself is highly competitive, but no Italian team has really been tipped as a genuine Champions League contender for years. Inter's final appearance aside, the purist in me loves the competitive balance of Serie A over the past 5-6 years, but I worry about the lack of a dominant team with superstars hurting engagement of the casual fan. The Bundesliga isn't even worth watching because Bayern win every season. Spain, it'll be one of the big two, or Atletico Madrid every now and again. In France, PSG win every year except the rare off-season. What do you guys think? Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I agree with all of it. I think it's a really good question. I personally, as a fan, I do prefer it like it is this season, even if I can accept that the quality is. I know the quality is not has gone down a lot this season. That's obvious, but it's much more exciting when you've got 3 teams kind of up there. Then you've got 6 teams fighting for 4th place. It's exciting when everything is decided. This is how football was always like in terms of competitiveness. Especially Serie A. It was always like this in the past until kind of like the last 20 years or so. In every league, this is kind of how it always is. Always very tight at the top. The number of points to win a league title was always very, very much lower than what it's been in the last 20 years. It's only recently, because of the way that the economically football has changed, that there's only a few clubs from a few leagues that basically control everything and have all the money and have all the best players, that stopped happening. So the fact that we've reverted to that a little bit in Serie A, I think is good for the fans. Absolutely. Does it ultimately help the league grow in terms of, like you're saying, financially and the marketability? Probably not, but I prefer it personally.
No, I think it depends. I think it's a truth with modification, as we say in Swedish. Inter, Milan, and Juve at the top of the Serie A. That's good. That's no other. With all due respect to Roma, Napoli, Fiorentina, Lazio, everyone else, none of them have the marketability, the growth, the reach that Inter, Milan, and Juve do, internationally as well as nationally. And that's why I want Inter, Milan, and Juve at the top. A classic 3-horse race between Inter, Milan, and Juve at the top. That drives incredible engagement, because this season, Milan fans have switched off. They switched off, basically, many of them switched off before the season began. Many of those, the remainder, half of them switched off after Fonseca was sacked. And then the last shit show of the last few weeks, there's like Milan fans 6% just care. Like that's just generally how the vibe I get. We're talking with people. They just like, I don't watch this anymore. It's just annoying. It's too much of a shit show. The same thing can be said about you over the last 1.5, 2 years, where everyone's saying it was so toxic under Allegri. Well, that was the good old times compared to the absolute cluster F that it is now. And so people, and these are the biggest clubs, so they will switch off. So what I want is the three of them to get their shit together and compete at the top. That's good for the Serie A. And I also want a Roma and Napoli and Lazio and Fiorentina, who are also at the same time getting their shit together, with a Bologna and an Atalanta. When you have, like you had in the 90s, when you had the Seven Sisters, all seven punching and fighting at each other, that drove lots of engagement and interest, because you had such great teams, you had such great quality. What's happened is that Juventus are a mess, Milan are a mess, Lazio are in a rebuild, they're doing really well, Atalanta are the pound for pound the best run club in the world, as you so often correctly say. Napoli won the Scudetto, and then everything fell off, and they're trying to find themselves again. So everyone's in a transition, except for Inter, who might be even on the way down, in the sense that some of their key players have peaked, and they have the oldest squad in Serie A, the oldest squad that won the Scudetto in I don't know, 10, 20 years. So that's the problem. You've got many projects either in transition or on the decline, and that kind of kills the interest a little bit. It kills the engagement, the hype. And with all due respect to Atalanta, they will never be able to have the kind of like breakthrough internationally as Milan, Inter, Juve, Roma, Napoli will do. It's just, I'm sorry, those are the facts. It doesn't mean that I don't love what Atalanta are doing, or anyone loves it, but that's just the reality. So what we need is for Juve and Milan to get their shit together, for Inter to maintain and rebuild and restart and reboot, and for Roma to have a normal season. I mean, Ranieri saved them, but it was a complete cluster F as well before that. So, we need the big dragons to get their shit together. Very simply put. That'll drive engagement. That'll drive interest.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with your point as well. But it's more so in Europe, though. I think for we need a good Milan, Inter, and Juventus for Europe, because then that's where most fans will make their opinions based on how the Italian teams perform in Europe. So when they see, the Italian teams do it, the big Italian teams do well in Europe, Inter, Juventus, and Milan, then that reflects that has a knock-on effect on the Serie A.
Agreed. Next question. Alex Pearson says, "Ciao ragazzi, thank you for being awesome." Well, thank you for the kind words. A few quick pod questions. One, which clubs are starting new reserve next-gen Futuro teams this summer? I know Inter are. I'm not sure about Napoli, but I know Inter are. And then second question, are there any news on clubs planning to do this from the 26th summer or later? Well, Atalanta already have one. I don't know about Roma and Lazio. I haven't seen anything about them. If they can do that or not, if they're going to do that or not, or Napoli. But I know Inter are starting this summer. And then he says, how many of these teams can the current league pyramid support? And 4, is there a limit? If there is a limit, is that not giving certain clubs an unfair advantage? I don't think there is a limit. I don't think you can stop people from creating teams. But there are regulations in place they need to follow.
Well, no, I mean, I think that will become definitely a more pertinent question when more of these teams do create them. And I do think that will come at some point. It's just when they're able to do it. And that include these teams like Roma, Lazio, Fiorentina. I'm sure that they will. Napoli, I'm sure they will do it at some point, and they're not ready yet. But when that does happen, I don't know what will happen, because at the moment they're getting fast tracked up the pyramid, which is already causing controversy. But that's not possible if there's going to be about 10 of them. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it's not possible. So at the moment it's not a problem, but it will be if there's going to be too many more that are going to be created.
I agree. That's possible.
I'm not aware of anything concrete. In the other teams, Inter, of course, but I'm not aware of.
Napoli, I know, have spoken about it. Roma and Lazio as well, but those, Fiorentina.
Yeah, in terms of anything concrete, I mean,
yeah, nothing. Speaking of Roma, we got a couple of questions on Roma. Jonas Skovby says, for many, many years, I thought Roma needed a hard-nosed coach that took shit from no one to kick the asses of the frail players, and Mourinho did have some obvious success. However, after seeing the positive atmosphere following Nonno's return, I'm starting to think that what Roma might actually need for their seemingly incredibly frail mentality is a softer father figure who protects players and lets them breathe rather than break them. This is also why I think Gasp would be a disastrous appointment of epic proportions. I agree with Jonas 100% here. Now Roma does not have a prayer's chance in hell to attract a premium name for the bench, so whether or not you agree with me, who would you realistically think Roma could get on the bench that could actually be a success, and what characteristics do you think would be most important to have for the next Roma coach? Secondly, where is the love for Svilar, who is obviously in the top 3 of keepers in the league at least? Regards. Right. I think, look, De Zerbi, if you want someone more exciting and like trendy, who plays a brand of football that is attractive and develops young players and blah, blah, blah. But personally, I know people are going to get annoyed, but I don't care. Sarri needs a job. And I don't understand why no one's like, what the hell are people thinking? Maurizio Sarri should get a job. I don't think Roma will get Allegri. I don't think Roma can get Roberto Mancini. So they're not going to get the top level coaches there. And then I'm looking around. Palladino, I don't think he's ready for the Roma job just yet. Baroni, 61 years old, is at Lazio, not going to happen. So I'm looking around. Vincenzo Italiano could be an option, but not the next season. I think that would be too big of a step for him. I think maybe one more season with Bologna. But yeah, definitely. Italiano, De Zerbi, Sarri. Someone who plays a 4-3-3.
Well, Gasperini obviously is the one that Ranieri kind of wants. You know, so I think Gasperini's the one that is kind of like the favourite with the management of Roma, if they can make it happen. But you know, we've spoken about him already.
But I think what Jonas said is the reason why I think it would be a disaster to appoint Gasperini. I think he doesn't get along with anyone, and he's too old school in how he, can you imagine him doing that at Roma, what he did to Lookman?
I think, look, when we talk about the characteristics, tactically, positionally, formationally, you know, with this group of players, I know Sule's a problem, but a 3-4-2-1 does suit this team the best. It does. It does. I know Sule is a problem with that, but they've found a way to kind of use him and be relatively, successful with him recently. But it is. So you want a coach that plays a 3-4-2-1, don't you? So out of those managers that you've mentioned there, who plays a 3-4-2-1 out of them?
I think
Palladino does, or Palladino could.
Yeah.
But like, I agree with you. I don't think I'm not convinced he's ready. So Gasperini, I think, fits in that sense. Obviously, there's other issues with Gasperini, which we've spoken about, which means that he might not be the right man. But either that, or you do just select another coach, and then you have to basically do quite a bit of a change around with your squad, and you have to
I
adapt
think
to
they
a
need to
transfer
do a
market.
change around. They need to do a change around with their squad. They need to resolve. Like Dybala needs to. God
In that
bless.
case, Dybala has to go.
Yes, but he has to go. He's not getting any younger. He keeps getting injured. He costs a lot of money. Like, yes, quality player, but at some point, like, rip the Band-Aid off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's it
restart.
then. You select the coach that doesn't play a 3-4-2-1. He has to go. Dybala has to go. Simple as that.
Yeah, he does. And he's, as I said, he's injured now as well. So, I don't think Roma can afford to have Dybala. Like, very simply put. He's a fantastic player, but yeah. As for Svilar, look, I think for me, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic has probably been the best goalkeeper in the Serie A, followed by Di Gregorio, Kanaseki, and Svilar fourth. Like that's my top 4 goalkeepers this season in the Serie A.
Yeah, I think maybe he has a point that maybe we haven't given him enough love as we should. So he gets taken for granted a little bit, maybe. So I'd go along with that. But yeah, I do think. No, I think you're right. I think De Gea has been really good as well.
Yeah, De Gea has been good too.
Yeah.
Speaking of Paulo Dybala, Johnny Manja asks, with Dybala out for a month, if you were Ranieri, how would you craft the attack in his absence? I'm sure it's going to be heavy on Sule, but who else can provide the creativity, fantasy, and genuine threat to put the ball into the back of the net? Can anyone say Salamakers? I think Salamaker's been good. I also like Baldanzi. I'd like Roma to build more around him. I really liked him when he was at Empoli. And Dovbyk is coming into his own finally, now that Roma are finally decided to put crosses into the box.
To answer the question, yes. I think it has to be Sule.
Yeah,
he's in good form. He stepped it up.
He's young. Listen, build around Sule.
It's not his ideal formation, but yeah, in the next... Well, it's a month, but obviously we're going to miss 2 weeks with international break. So he's going to be out for 2 weeks, Dybala, or so.
Yeah.
So those 2 games that he's going to miss, maybe 3 maximum. Yeah, I think Sule.
Agreed. Next question. Daniel Green says, hey guys, hope you're well. I've been watching a lot of football recently as I've had some spare time from work. I found myself watching some Crystal Palace games and I noticed how good Jean-Phillipe Mateta actually is. He has the perfect profile for Serie A and was wondering whether you guys would like to see him in Italy, and if so, which club would you see him at? Thanks for the pods as always. I have not watched Jean-Phillipe Mateta, so I don't know. Have you?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of him. He's good, but he's also been. There's a lot of Premier League clubs that are looking at him as well. So once that happens, then it's always difficult, isn't it? Once the Premier League clubs are looking at players, but he's not young. I think he's mid to late 27. It's going to be 28 in June. I'm just looking at it now, and I'm just looking at that ear injury that he got. Christ, that is horrible.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Wow.
Ugh,
God. Yeah, but I
Absolutely
didn't want to see that.
No, I did not want to see that. Bloody
that is
hell.
disgusting.
That is
Bloody
horrible.
hell.
Jesus Christ, that's
I
gross.
lost his whole ear.
Yeah, I don't want to. God.
Christ almighty.
I was not expecting to see that.
Yeah, I just Googled him
That was gory.
Bloody hell.
That was like gratuitous gore. Bloody hell, that's disgusting.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I
Wow.
hope he's okay.
Had to be
Bloody
Millwall as well, didn't it?
hell.
Yeah, but I think it's difficult. Christ almighty, that is terrible.
Yeah,
but I know that some big Premier League clubs are looking at him, Man United as well, and his value is, well, listen, with the Premier League player, well, you're looking at kind of probably 40, 50 million just to get started. Can Premier League Italian clubs just can't afford that? I just think they automatically become out of range for Italian clubs. Premier League players that are performing, like someone like Mateta is. I'm not saying he's top tier Premier League player, but even second tier Premier League players that are doing really, really well, they're out of range for Serie A clubs. Look at Garnacho when Napoli had all the money to spend from the Kvaratskhelia deal, and that deal was never ever going to happen in a million years. They wasted all that time negotiating. It was never going to happen. They were never going to be able to afford that money. It's just, I just think that, I just don't think it's realistic. unfortunately.
I'm with you 100%. I'm with you on that. Ryan Yaboni says, "Hi guys, hope you're doing well. My question is regarding the fan protests of Milan and Juve. You guys have spoken at length regarding the upper management problems at Milan and Juve, and I can confidently say most Milan and Juve fans, including myself, are generally aligned with most of what you've said in previous episodes. But my question is, have the two sets of fans been going at it the right way? It is quite evident how much an impact fans can have on the overall atmosphere of the club, and I feel that results are significantly impacted by this. The protests of Milan, for example, started all the way back in December, when there was still a lot to play for in the season. The fans will argue the ends justify the means, but in the short term, is it worth potentially costing your team a top 4 position? Especially knowing how important finishing in the Champions League spots is. Carlos said it himself, missing out on top 4 for the Juve would be disastrous and would set the project back. This is a form of self-sabotage. I look back at the Milan-Lazio game as being such a pivotal match in the race for top 4. It was a match that maybe Milan players could have used the fans the most, and the fans chose to make the most match about themselves and their motives as opposed to the team. Maybe players even felt abandoned. Leao, after the match, posted on social media, "Us against the world." It's difficult to perform at your best under these conditions, and while I'm asking this, I would just like to preface that I'm not saying I disagree with the position in which the fans are protesting, nor am I disagreeing with the fans' right to protest. But for example, why can't the Milan fans protest outside of Casa Milan? You're letting your position be well heard to the management while trying to limit your on-field impact. This is just a thought. I look forward to hearing your opinions on this. Thanks as always, Ryan. What do you make of that?
Good point. I think it's a good point.
Yeah, it is actually very rather thoughtful point.
I think that what has a more impact on the management? Don't want to make it about, making them scared. Nobody should be fearful going in working at their job, but you do feel the pressure more and we have to do something about this. If if you had fans protesting outside Casa Milan, obviously as long as it's all done, in a way that isn't violent, isn't putting their lives physically and mentally at risk, then absolutely, I think it's a good point, because it is, like we said, it is almost impossible when the environment becomes so toxic, so poisonous, and you've got your fans that are creating negative energy in the stadiums. You're not playing at home; you're almost playing away, because you're giving energy to the opposition, and fuel to the opposition, and it's horrible. So I do think that's a good point.
I agree. I think he does have a point, but at the same time, I'm sorry, but Juventus and Milan fans have a very good reason to be angry. Like, that's all I'm going to say.
No, they do. I think he's saying. I think he's saying.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying that I don't understand why. It's not like they started. They went through quite a bit of shit before they got here, Milan fans. And it wasn't just this season.
No, for sure. I think that. But the other thing to remember is that it's easier to protest on a match day. Match days at the weekend, you're not at work, or it's at night, you're not at work. Well, unless you're like one of the ultras who don't
believe in
work,
working,
don't work. They,
at least not legal work.
Yeah,
exactly. I
was
there. Yeah.
But how are you going to organise like a big protest outside Casa Milan during the day when those people are in the offices? Do you know what I mean? It's not really workable. And then even if you do protest outside the office, I mean, Cardinal is there goes to Milan once a year. So
the cameras are all there. It's convenience as well. It's the game. Everyone's there. Everyone's watching. That's when they do it. I mean, that's just basically what it is. But I do think he has a point. I do agree with that. Speaking of Milan, we continue with the next question. Alex Nesta says, is it too premature to start worrying about Kamada's development? 2 goals in 13 Serie C matches is not great. He's clearly got talent, but do you still think he can be a legend for Italy and Milan one day? What will you be looking for him? What will you be looking for from him next season? Well, I'd like to see him start delivering in Serie C to start for. And I know this is such a youth team player, scores a gajillion goals playing against other children because he's developed, like he's more developed mentally or physically. And then everyone is like, gets all excited, and then it fizzles out. I don't know how many times I've seen this happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen about Kamada, but like I said back then, let's calm down. Let's see what he can do. Let's not, nice he got a few minutes, but let's wait.
I don't know what has happened to Milan in Serie C this season. I haven't watched any of the games. I cannot understand how a team with so many talented young players is risking relegation. I mean, where are they in the table now? Are they in the relegation zone? Let's have a look. Serie A table. I think they are right at risk of being relegated. Which girone are they in? Milan. Girone. It's the Girone B, I think. Let's have a look. They're 18th in the table, with 6 games left. So the 6 games left. They're 18th out of 20. 4 wins in 32 games this season, with a group of young players that are supposed to be have all been doing at youth level, being like key players for the youth teams. Like Kamada, Liberali, what's his name, the left back Bartesaghi. Then you had some others that have kind of moved on now, like Zeroli and a few of the others. I mean, I cannot understand how that team is possibly 18th. And then, like you said, look at the numbers, Kamada's numbers. Liberali, who was the best player for the Italy, victorious Italy under-17s in Euros last year. He hasn't scored a goal or got an assist this season in Serie A. And then that's really makes me worry, because I'm thinking, well, Kamada and Liberali are supposed to be our 2 biggest young youth talents. And they're struggling in Serie A. So what is the issue here? How can they be? I know youth football is different to senior football, and I know they're both very young. I think they're both 17. But again, it comes down to the whole development discussion. Are we developing these players right? Are we training them right? Why can't they make this step up? Why is it that these players are the best in these under-17, under-19 youth tournaments? They then don't make the step up to seniors, and yet we see others who they were better than at these youth tournaments, like Ethan Nwaneri, who's the example I give from England, who was in that same tournament as Liberali and Kamada, and was inferior to those players, has gone on and it has been one of the breakout stars in the Premier League this year, and is scoring in the Champions League and starting and scoring in the Champions League. I don't understand. So something is going wrong. I just don't understand it. I don't.
It's like everything has gone wrong at Milan this season, including
the youth.
It's the youth project as well. Yeah. It's
How many teams go down from Serie A? Do you know?
I think it's at least 2. Like if I'm not mistaken, there's like a play out as well.
There's definitely a play out. I'm just not sure how many.
Yeah. It's 2 teams. The bottom gets relegated, and then you've got 4 teams that play out.
So what is it, like a 2-legged?
Yeah.
The semi-final and a final of a play out,
I think
or something
so.
like
Yeah,
that.
I think so. Yeah, it's a
That's
relegation.
quite hard to stay up, then, isn't it? It means you have to basically win your semi-final and your final to.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think so.
So Milan could go down.
I think so. I'm not sure. I think it's
16 to 19 is qualification for the relegation playouts.
Yeah, playoffs or whatever they call it.
Yeah, playouts. Yeah, I need to have to look into that and see how the actual playouts work. But I mean, if Milan get relegated to Milan's Futuro team gets relegated to Serie D, I mean, that's just a complete disaster. Again, damning on the Milan project under Cardinale if the Milan Futuro team gets relegated to Serie D. I mean, that's amateur. It's amateur football.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Next question, Magnus Kaufman says, "Hi guys, congrats on the 500th episode. Love the pod. I've got 3 questions. Nima, I saw today that Inzaghi is linked to a new contract of 2028. Will he finally get a longer contract extension? 2, do you think Gatusso can coach in the Serie A again, and what is his level? And 3, Sergio Conceicao is a no-nonsense coach. Do you guys remember what kind of player he was? I can remember a little bit from his time at Inter, but what kind of a player was he at Lazio and Parma? Where was he at his best?" Magnus from Oslo. First question, I don't think Inter and Inzaghi want to extend more than 1 year at a time because of the risk involved for both of them. Meaning, if something were to happen, Inter only have to have 1 year left on his contract once the season starts that they have to pay him. And also, I think he's happy with that. And I think Inzaghi's happy with that as well, because he doesn't want to be tied down too long either, and he can get another job. But I hope that they give him a 2-year extension instead of 1 year at a time. So there's always 2 years left on his contract when he starts the season. I think that's a little bit, especially given the amount of interest he gets from the Premier League. I think Inter need to be a little bit wise there. As for Gattuso, of course he can coach in the Serie A. I think he did all right at Napoli. He wasn't a disaster there. I think he did all right at Milan. So for me, I would like to have seen him in Fiorentina if he hadn't gone into a battle with argument with Rocco Commisso. But I think a Bologna, a Fiorentina, somewhere like that is where I can see Gattuso.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd love to have him back as well because he's great fun. But to be fair, he seems to be angrier more when he's in outside countries.
Yeah.
He seems to be quite well behaved in.
Well, because he doesn't get in Italy, he's respected. He's a World Cup winner. He's an OMRI. He's a knight. I mean, he's a Cavaliere della Repubblica. Like he's not, he gets automatically a respect. He was a player that won everything with Milan. Like, do you know what I mean? He gets a respect at a level in Italy that he doesn't get abroad, and that's why when he's abroad, he gets pissed off. I mean, you saw this latest thing with the Croatian media on live TV. Where it's like, oh, the Croatian guy said, you're not, you're a guest in this country and blah blah blah, and it's like he doesn't. He's a very proud person, and he doesn't like being certain things. He just doesn't accept. So I think it's got to do with that. I think he's just treated with a different kind of respect in Italy. He's Gattuso in Italy. That carries a bit of power with it. Abroad, not so much. Not many people remember him abroad. At that as being that he doesn't get that kind of a automatic respect, and I think that annoys him because he is a very proud person. So I think that's mainly what it is. As for Conceicao, he was one of the best right wingers in the world when he was at Parma. Or was it Lazio where he was at his best? I think Lazio was at his best.
Yeah.
Or was it Parma was at his best? But I remember he was one of the best right. I was very excited when Inter signed him, but he flopped massively. I loved him as a player. He was very technical, goal scorer, goal threat, quick,
direct. He was a very direct player.
Yeah.
Got the ball and just bang, started running at the players straight away. Yeah.
Agree.
No, yeah, he was an excellent player. Yeah, he was a wonderful player. Really, really good. He was at his best in Euro 2000, I think. I remember he scored that hat trick, didn't he, against Germany? Do you remember
Oliver
that?
Kahn, yeah, knocked him out. That was the group with Romania, England, Germany, and Portugal.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
England and Germany
Euro 2000. What an amazing tournament! So many amazing games in that.
And Germany and England got knocked out. They finished last.
I actually think that's the last really great, legendary international tournament. Just for amazing games and for amazing top world class players. Marrying the two. I think I always say 2006 World Cup was the last World Cup with brilliant players, with fantastic top class legendary players in it. With every major country packed full with world class legendary players. Some of them starting to get a bit older, but still. But Euro 2000 was maybe the last international tournament where you married the two together. So many fantastic world class legendary players together with world class legendary games and amazing matches. And there were so many in Euro 2000. Portugal were part of a lot of them. That England game, the first game, do you remember it? England went 2-0 up.
I've ever seen. Luis Figo's, 2-0 goal, 2 goals up, and then Luis Figo, and it was just
Figo smashed one in, didn't he? From
30, 40 yards out into the top corner. Unstoppable. Next question. David Backrack says, "Heine Carlo, congrats on 500 episodes. You both have my favorite Italian football podcast, which helps me feel connected to the Calcio community when that is not easy in the US. And also thank you, Carlo, for defending the honor of my last name last week. Side note, it is spelled slightly different than Backrack. We don't have the extra A in the middle. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. My question is, if you both think I'm completely blinded by my Milan-colored glasses in this take, I argue to my friends that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the third best forward of the 21st century behind Messi and Ronaldo when you consider his goal-scoring record, domestic league success, his unique style of play, and longevity. Most players peak for maybe 5-8 years, but he was at the top of his game for much longer, even coming back to Milan in his late 30s to win our first Scudetto since he helped lead us to our previous one. I still think back to his 35 yard volley in that first Scudetto season against Lecce. One of my favorite goals ever from a player in a Milan shirt. Do you agree? Am I wildly blinded by my love of Milan and Zlatan? No, I think those three are that era of football is Messi, Ronaldo, Zlatan.
I think in terms of, if we're talking about domestic club football, absolutely no doubt about it. I don't think there's any argument. It's Messi in that era of let's say the 2010s, should we say, or maybe just a little bit before then, that kind of 10-year period. It's Messi, Ronaldo, and then Zlatan in third.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. But then if you're going to combine Champions League with that, Zlatan, even though he did still have a good, excellent scoring record overall in Champions League, when it got to kind of knockout stage of the Champions League, quarterfinals onwards, he never did it. He was very disappointing, and he's definitely nowhere near the top three when you include that as well. And then international football, but that's difficult because he's playing for Sweden, who never really realistically could challenge. So if we're talking just
and he was
domestic,
playing for Sweden,
yeah.
And he was playing for Sweden with probably it was an atrocious Sweden after 2004. In 2004, when they had Henke Larsson, Mellberg, Ljungberg, that was a decent side. But after that, it was an atrocious side.
Yeah.
It was absolutely unwatchable. He had Erkan Zengin,
Who?
like Bayrami, it's like what do you want him to do? Like, it was Ola Toivonen. It was just unwatchable team.
Yeah, just to make it simple, I think domestic football, no doubt about it, the third best forward of the era of Messi and Ronaldo. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to say 21st century because there's been a lot of great forwards at the start of the 21st century as well. But in all football, I don't know. That's a little bit more to discuss there because of it, his kind of disappointment in the Champions League performances and knockout performances.
Yeah. Next question, Daniel Ljungström has a question for you, Carlo. He says, you mentioned that Juve will lose up to 100 million if they miss out on European Cups altogether. You do realize that we don't have to spend 20 million on Lord Kelly if that happens, though. Shouldn't Juve prioritize that and make up for the remaining 80 million in other ways rather than sticking with him for the next season?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. It's tempting, isn't it? Christ. Lord Kelly.
The state of Juve. I'm sorry.
I love how everybody's calling him Lord Kelly as well. I've had a few people come to me the last few days calling him Lord Kelly.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. It's a mess, isn't it? It's a mess. I don't understand why they've stuck with Motta. I really don't. I mean, there has been some reports in the last couple of days since that announcement that they're going to stick with him from Giunta that he might still get the sack if they lose to Genoa, if they don't beat Genoa.
But that's such a stupid. You have 2 weeks now. Now's the time you do it.
Exactly. You bring in a coach. You give him 2 weeks to prepare, to get his feet under the desk and start preparing and planning and working with, at least give them a little bit. I mean, I know a lot of them are out on international duty, but you get to work with some of the players that haven't gone, and you start planning and preparing.
It's so
rather
dumb.
than come in, let's say, after Genoa, and then you're what,
It's dumb. It's dumb. I think it's genuinely dumb, and they're playing with fire, and I don't know.
It reminds me again. The Man United links continue. End of last season when Man United were thinking on whether to sack Erik ten Hag or not, and then they did this big review, and then bizarrely decided after spending 2 months of the start of the summer deciding on whether to keep or to sack ten Hag, they ended up deciding to keep him. They made an announcement. They gave him a new contract, and then everything happened, which was inevitable. You could say everybody knew what was going to happen, which was he starts the next season disastrously. They end up sacking him just over 2 months into the new season, and then they bring in Ruben Amorim in November, and it's so hard coming in mid-season, and he's a disaster as well. And now it's just why didn't you just make that decision straight away in May at the end of last season? bring someone in at the start of the summer, give them a hold of the transfer market, a hold of the pre-season, and then, you actually give them a proper chance to make a job of it. Now, Juventus, okay, this is in season, but Juventus making a similar mistake here.
Yeah, agreed. Final question. Daniel Bowen says, how do you guys feel about the prospect of the Scudetto being decided as a final in the case top two teams end up tied on points? I had trouble finding whether any would be, which I wonder about. I would imagine would be Rome, or maybe there are other tiebreakers that could identify if the match is played at one of the club's home stadiums, for example, head-to-head, goal difference. Amazing work from your.
I have the answer to this.
Yeah, go for it.
It's whoever is got the better head-to-head between the two teams plays the final, the tiebreaker at home. So if it's Napoli and Inter, what were their two scores? Napoli and Inter?
Well, 1-1, 1-1.
Okay, in that case, I've got exactly the same. So I'm not actually sure. I don't know if it then goes to goal difference. I'm not sure about that. I'll be honest. I know, but if it had been say Inter had won 1-0 at San Siro and it had been 1-1 in Naples, Inter would have played the tiebreaker at home.
Yeah.
Let's say Inter and Atalanta finish level on points. It's not going to happen. But if they did, Inter will play the tiebreaker.
Yeah, they beat both
of
them. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's.
I'm not sure if it's points. If it goes to points, goal difference. Sorry, I'm not sure about that. I need to check that out.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Right, that's all the questions we had time for, or all the questions you guys sent in, rather, this week. Please do keep on sending in your questions via Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, email, but preferably via DM on Patreon. We'll be back by the time you listen to this. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, for a post-match reaction that Carlo will do on Italy against Germany, the first leg to be played at the San Siro. But after that, we'll be back on Monday. To all Iranians and everyone who celebrate Nowruz, Nowruz Piruz. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ciao, ciao.